So hello everybody, today's date is Friday, March 29th. I am your host, Tom Kaczynski, so that my wife said I sound like I was panting the last time, and I had the phone between my knees, but I decided to set it up a little differently here. I have it in the bathroom because it's warm in here, and if you've ever been in a Maine winter, and this winter seems to be coming back around a little bit, you understand what the logic is of coming in a warm room and visiting with you all, but got a really strong response, I think, to the last video, and I did say I was going to do a few more videos before the end of things here, which let's say will be 2 weeks from now. Just to pick a date, I might pick a little before that, but I'll let you know when it's done. But as always, invite you to reach out to me at Tom Kaczynski, Telegram, Twitter, same guy, same place, or here, whatever. I'm sure you can send a connection through here. I think we left connections to there, or I'll see your message. Leave me a way to contact you if you prefer. That's fine, and I'll reach out to you. And like I was saying to Zoid and other people, if you guys want me to come on, hey, I'm happy to come on as a guest. I'm just not going to do this as a full-time gig anymore because, frankly, it's a lot of work and it's difficult. And it's a difficult time. It's a difficult time for everybody out there, isn't it? I was watching some more video of the bridge going down in Baltimore, and, is it incompetence? Maybe. Is it payback for the fact that we've been, having certain entities mess around in the Russian Federation, and they've always joked about taking out that one bridge for Crimea? Maybe. I don't know, but, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know which is worse, right? You sit there and think about it like we do. It's like, do you want to believe we live in a land that's so corrupt that we literally take out our own bridges, between episodes of Ouch My Balls? Or do you want to believe that now we are in a fight with an enemy who has decided that we've been enough of an irritant that they're going to start taking out basic infrastructure and American lives? And not that I could blame them, by the way. I mean, they've still been very restrained, and Russia's winning that war despite the fact NATO's trying to slip troops in there. And, I mean, there's going to have to be a partition or a major war, one or the other. And, I mean, a partition would be smart, right? You could say to the Russians that you get everything east of the Dnieper, and the Ukrainian west, whatever, will get everything west of the Dnieper and maybe make Kiev a free city. It's been done before that way. Could be a pathway to peace if people wanted peace, but this is a battle over money, right? And the dollar would lose all credibility if that happens, which would impoverish the West and allow the East to win that war. There would be a war for a free world. Not that they even want to conquer the West. They just don't want the West to control them. And it's a strange decoupling that's happening where when you read foreign powers, they're like, do you really want to cause America to go nuts with this sort of juvenile leadership we have here? But back to Baltimore for a second. So I was watching an interview on MSNBC, of all places, with the mayor of Baltimore, whose name I didn't bother to learn because I didn't really need to. He was just saying that people shouldn't be saying crap about Baltimore because a young black man is running it, and that they're going to run it the way they want to run it now. And shades of South Africa, for those of you who are aware. And what you're trying to save and protect for those of you who aren't thinking like I am as a future migrant in wait. And that's moving forward, by the way. The South American project is moving forward with great speed and with great public interest. So one day I will be down there with my wife, and things will be good. You may not hear from me then, or you may not hear from me in the form you're used to hearing. I'm kind of done doing the deep political dives. Not because it doesn't matter, but I mean, maybe I'll tell the story of America once it's done, but my future is not as an American, and I've accepted that. Not because people with great agency haven't wanted me to be involved, but because they aren't the ones who make the decisions, and you are probably amongst them if you listen to the show. Whether you served the country or you didn't, whether you were in the private sector or the public sector. I mean, I think we've reached the point now where you got to start looking to where you want to put your family for the long haul. You got to start thinking in terms of the old days where people left somewhere and came here because here was better than there, except now it's reversed. Do you have the courage to do that, or do you think you're going to fight for something? And we can point to things. Demography, obviously a huge part of it. The propaganda state, technology, feminism. We can point out all the causes, but the problem is no one really wants to fix it because we still want the problems or the benefits that they allow, and we're not willing to recast our society. And that's okay. I mean, that's the right. And it actually is at this point a majority rule, even though minorities are pushing them forward. So I don't know. This schizo isn't able to reach out beyond the psychopaths to reach the normies anymore. It's just fighting the algorithm is too hard. And I've said that before, but I do think war's coming. I do think it's worth looking at just how much manpower is being shifted into Europe and how quickly. I mean, the part that's sort of ridiculous, and this is the part that drives wars in history. Those of you who studied this know this. It was mobilization. Mobilization before the Franco-Prussian War, right? The fact that the Prussians didn't have more forces, but they had better railroads. Count on German engineering over French, right? That's why you drive a Mercedes and not a Renault if you have the choice. But even German engineering now has gone away because of their obsession with the left green thing. And Europe is starting to rearm and remilitarize, but here we're still talking green climate change crap because, the problem is the only people left in the Democrats and the people who throw the money are the true believers. And the Republicans don't do any better, but it's going to take too long to reorganize that, I think. But logistics wins wars, and logistically speaking, the finance economy that has been created in the West does not produce things anymore. It may lead to us having more wars for resources in West Africa. You see fights between the French and the Russians in the Sahel. That's the area south of the Sahara, above the jungle, where Mali and other countries are found. Mansa Musa, you can read an interesting story there. Supposedly the richest man in history. I don't know, but the dude had a lot of gold. His bling put Cairo to shame. Actually sunk the whole economy of the Caliphate. Interesting story. You can go listen to, was it End of Civilizations podcast, I think it's called, or Fall of Civilizations, I forget what it's called. One of those two. You can find it on YouTube. They're excellent. I recommend them. And definitely a delight for a historian to listen to. But yeah, I mean, America can't produce because our rules are set up in a way to not prioritize that. Now, if a war breaks out, things will absolutely change. But the government will panic, overreact, and they'll try to draft a bunch of people, including the same people they hate, who they've been targeting all along. And those people will probably offer an opinion that is different than yes, sir. Put it that way, and then we'll see what happens when that plays out. I think that'll be an opportunity for new leadership to arise, and I think, you may see a sheriff or two somewhere be the people who really do it. I think governors are too caught up in the system, but who knows? It could go the other way. It could go with the border the opposite way, but I don't think our government looks at this problem as a crisis. They look at this as a resource to be exploited, and as long as they can keep it from directly impacting them too much, they'll be willing to deal with that, and then you're going to have to deal with the consequences of that. And you can separate yourself. You could live in rural Maine like I've done. You could live in any of a number of places that are lovely on a day-to-day basis with good people, but you have to expect and understand that that system that's out there is going to go after the people of highest agency first to try to collateralize your assets to service their debt. And the dollar's purchasing power correspondingly is only going to get weaker. So if you wait longer, it gets harder, is what I'm telling you. And right now, there are opportunities where you can leverage the still value of a dollar or, those relationships to find a way to land. There are places you can land. I mean, you're looking at not the best places, but if you figure out the finances of it, I mean, Bolivia, Paraguay, Argentina, like I'm looking at, there are options. Ecuador has had some problems lately, but the U.S. dollar there. And people are like, well, why are you giving up? That's the question I get. Don't you want to fight? For what? I mean, it's not that I'm afraid of fight, don't misunderstand, but the very people you'd be fighting to help are the very people who are going to hate you. You do understand that. I mean, you've lived that. And eventually, the people who you hate, who stand against you, are just going to side with whoever wins anyway. So you don't really need to give overly mind to their opinion. Nature resets itself. I mean, half the population is going to follow the winning population because they're genetically predisposed to that. And even if you were to separate out the Y chromosomal component of that, you would also find that even in a general population, you would find that 2/3 of the people are eventually going to end up going along with whatever's suggested. A third will embrace it, enthusiastically because authority said so, and the other third will follow them because that's what they do. And those of you who remember the last few years who got through it unsticked, congratulations to you, to myself and to Dana as well. But that was the price you're going to have to pay. Except this will be harder because now there's an enemy that's more clear to face. And it's an enemy we've created at every step of the way. It's an enemy of the rest of the world who, I think there was an idea in the West by the leadership to have a few people with a lot of money across all societies, which is what globalism is, and a whole bunch of poor people homogenized between societies underneath them. And certain societies held together because they found the ideas that were put together abhorrent. I'm not going to pretend Russia or China didn't sign up for this because the people in charge of the Communist Party or who have seats in the Duma are any less corrupt than elites in the West. I don't think it works like that. But I do think that they may have had moral scruples. And I do think their societies had greater moral health, and they saw what the price of Western leadership was, what it has done to countries in Western Europe specifically, and the insanity that's produced, the basically unmaking of nations based on population structures, where this has not been a situation where you brought in high skilled talent to integrate as a portion of your society. That's a nice theory, but the truth is it's mass being overrun. For the example of being just cheap labor for one part, for another ability for exploitation, and even when they argued for it, the argument they made is, well, these people can come work and pay for our old people. It's such a cruise liner mentality of, you could read in the old European documents the last 20 years what they thought would happen, and instead they did what Charlemagne did. They undone. They are allowing a caliphate. And interestingly, Islam ascendant is looking at questions of who runs the West very differently than people have done before. And I do think there's a rich irony in how that's all working out that I think most of you can understand and appreciate pretty clearly. I mean, even we've gotten to the point now where the U.S. is allowing motions against Israel to go through in the UN. And it should, by the way. I mean, the way that whole thing has been handled is a mess, and I'm not here to tell you what the answer is to it, but like my wife would say, I mean, genociding people in real time in Gaza isn't it. And I think that country is completely unaware of what's happening, and it would not surprise me if the way things play out the next year or two is that if they continue moving forward with their attacks, they may be the one that go the way of the Crusader States, and that may reset many things in the world, or it may make the world completely unlivable, in which case you'll want to be as far away from civilization as possible, which, once again, would have you in the Southern Cone. See how that works? You got to think of a lot of different eventualities, and I don't know what they are. I know I talk too fast. My wife always says, why don't you talk at a speed for someone who's listening? But that was one of the fun things with this, that I could share my stream of thought as it came to me. And, as I sit here, looking at what is going to be probably my last New England summer, God willing, we'll see. I have to put the house up here and do all that. Got a lot of cleaning to do between now and then. And if anyone wants to come up for a visit, man, maybe I'll trade you some goods for some work if you want to go for it. So let me know. Maybe do something in May or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's been tough lately. Just the weather's been tough, and dealing with some personal issues, dealing with Dana's health. I always ask for prayers for her. And for me, my health is not good. Had some incidences and accidents that have been a little bit painful, but all my parts seem to be working. And if I look younger and happier and healthier, give credit to the wife for the haircut, for one, although I do need to try to keep up with it a little better than I usually do. And also want to just say that, accepting the inevitable, that's part of it, that you accept that life is an experience, and you move along wisely and shrewdly, and you give yourself the opportunity for new people to come into your life while keeping people close who matter to you. And you look for the chance to avoid problems that are around you, and the problems are not hard to predict. Maybe something good will happen. I hope it does. I hope that peace wins out, but prophecy tells a different story. I know a lot of people are freaked out this week. We got the eclipse coming up. We're in the path of the eclipse up here, so we'll see it for sure. But if it goes something really funny, it'll probably hit long before it hits Maine and Nova Scotia, or, well, New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, actually. But the red heifer's out there. I mean, people are trying to summon things. CERN is, turning the heater on the same exact day that they're supposedly shooting 3 rockets up at the eclipse, and they named after, of course, after a serpent deity, Apep. So if you want to go nuts in those rabbit holes. I think there's some people out there doing some interesting work. But I'll tell you the truth, I think it's going to hold on. I don't see anything too crazy happening just yet. I think the next big event is a war. I think wars start in in May or September, and there's good military reasons for that, about advantages you want about climate and whatnot. With respect to Ukraine, they got to wait for the mud season to end there. And I know those of you down south don't know what it is. You think mudding is a thing, and that's fine. But when you live in a northern climate and the snow goes away, that water sits on rock and has nowhere to go. So the water becomes mud and land becomes a bubble, which is why northern areas like Maine, for instance, can actually be quite swampy, that you probably wouldn't know about. But that's something that is an issue in the eastern Ukraine as well. And as we see Russia mobilizing, I think that we will see, they have said they're now at war rather than a special military operation. You will see Russia advance on Kharkiv. Almost certainly they will advance to the Dnieper line, I think. And if they want to move quick, maybe they'll move on Odessa before the West is ready for it. But the West thinks they're going to be able to put troops in there, like Macron is saying, or have F-16s, buzz them from Poland. They ought to just make a deal. I've been saying it for some years. Task the Russians to give up Kaliningrad. They only grabbed it after the war because of Königsberg, and that was a whole another story. A very sad story in history what happened to Königsberg, actually. It's the losers don't get to tell their stories of when they're victims, but the rape of Königsberg is a truly terrible story. One of many from World War II, on all sides. It's like Curtis LeMay said, we had to win the war. We'd been the war criminals, like they did to the Germans. And those are things that happen in history over and over again. And as you look at America and our allies, I was thinking of something. I was watching this morning, like NFL games being played in Germany, and Major League Baseball being played in London. And I was thinking that it's a shame that the West never was allowed to unite together, because its elites hated the people who made it up and the beliefs they carried with them. Because there could have been maybe a world where Europe and America, and maybe even parts of East Asia, had done something really good. And maybe if we had better leadership in the 90s, the Russians would have ended up part of that world, and the Chinese would have been their own world, probably. But they would have been, we could have got along with them fine, and there wouldn't have been the issues and the drama. But this is history. Sociopathy wins out. Evil plays a role, and nations fight, and evil kills evil. Just like we'll see happen to a lot of Western countries, potentially. And it brings me no joy. The last thing I want to see is yet another in an interminable series of brothers' wars by leadership that doesn't represent, let's be blunt, they don't represent white people, and they don't represent Christians. They're antithetical to both of those beliefs, so much so that they don't even use plus signs in certain places, because cross is too offensive. True story. Look it up. Not making it up. For those of you who live in CE, right? But over here back in EAD, it's a new adventure that's coming down the line for me. My mind feels good. Taking care of a lot of problems, figuring out different things, and trying to make sure the future is a better one. It's interesting, going off into the wilderness. I've been building, you guys know I have a sizable book collection I just talk about, and you've seen it. I think it's 62 books, and I haven't packed the ones that Dana and I share yet. 62 bankers boxes. I'm giving 2 up, so a friend of mine will end up getting those before we go. But I was just thinking, I've been collecting sort of books, not just on history. My history section's crazy, but my just about basic ways to live. And it had me thinking. I have these books on electrical engineering now, right, and metallurgy. And so many of us know how things operate in the world and how to operate the things around us, but we don't know how to construct those. And we're going to have to go back, and we're going to have to simplify, probably. Unless we want to live in a fully automated future. And if you think that's a good idea, I recommend you go read Behold the Beast System. Which, by the way, those of you who are listening, they're on Audible now, that they're being covered. Let me know how it came out. I'm curious. Some feedback would certainly be welcome, and much appreciated. So definitely appreciate that. And, anyone want to do a last call on the program, that's always appreciated. The Venmo is CBCPRV. But other than that, for those of you who missed the sermons, I'll talk about that for a little bit. I kind of felt like I said what I needed to say, and I'm not very good at repeating myself over and over again. But I do believe we are entering into a new dark age, and in a dark age, it will be weird. They'll be a little steampunky with little bits of technology, and maybe yours truly will be rocking a caftan like I've thought about doing. Trying to figure out the elements of magic, literally, which is to say that if we can imagine it, the Lord said in the beginning of things that, so if you call it out and you imagine these things can be done, Christ said, greater things than I you can do, which is, should be beyond your imagining almost, but yet it's a hint. It's a hint of a world where the supernatural existed, and where I think the Protestant path has hit a dead end because it's lost that connection to the numinous, to the idea that there is an idea of the holy and ineffable. And remember, everything that's out there, you read Book of Enoch and other things that will confirm this, God created it all. Sometimes you give things over to people who give you secret knowledge, but there's always a harder way to find it, and there's always a way through faith and through inspiration and prayer and study. And so, more people who are on the good team are going to have to figure out how to learn things without having bad guys, be the intermediary. And I don't know what the solution is to that. I am a lowly scribe, a magister heading off into the mountains, so I don't have an answer for you on that. But I do think that keeping the word close to you is always a good answer, and trying to seek out the Lord and the role He plays in your lives. You start from that, and then how far you're willing to go. I have a good friend of mine who often says when he wanders, it helps bring him back home. And I understand that way of thinking. I'm not here to endorse it, but I live it. I have questions. I have curiosity. We were burdened with this from the beginning, and the Lord must have meant it for us, because He always celebrates the prodigal returning home. And yet, maybe if we aren't the ones out there fighting His battles, the Lord's battles, in places where the Lord's word isn't heard, maybe some people are lost who could have been found. And I've always taken some comfort from that. I think that's an important role that we play, who talks this, because it's not easy in this day to be a Christian. It never is. You're always targeted, and with the society turning against you, the only benefit you have is in your belief it's the truth, and the comfort that comes from knowing the Lord is in your life, which is no small thing, by the way. Eternity is a very long time. Think wisely on that. So those are some thoughts I had for you today. Just trying to get some rest this weekend. I'm actually in quite a bit of pain. So I'll go sit down, take it easy after this. God bless each and every one of you. I just want to pray a blessing onto you, onto your families, and that good things happen to you. Love you all. All right. God bless. Tom Kaczynski out.